This episode of Minor Obsession is brought to you by the UNC Charlotte Belk College of Business, North Carolina's urban research business school. As alumni of Belk College ourselves, we encourage you to visit belkcollege.uncc.edu and learn how Charlotte's business school can inspire your career path. Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Minor Obsession. Scott Lieberman with Sean Newton as always. And we are back after our two-part interview series with men's and women's basketball coaches. So this should be a good one as we now get to analyze what they've been doing. And let's start with men's basketball because I think men's basketball kind of got what I like to call the Minor Obsession bump. Went on a nice winning streak. I know in our interview we asked Coach Sanchez if we were going to make it past our win total for the last couple of years, which I believe was around 8. We were at 6 when we talked to him. We're at 10 now, so you're welcome, everyone. That was pretty awesome. And we won another road game in this time. So lots of good news, doubling our road wins for the season. Just in the short week.
Neglecting to mention the 2-game losing skid that we just hit too, right? I mean, the bump was definitely there for sure. I call it a bump. 4-game win streak is really nice. And I don't want to knock the 2 losses because, I mean, I think the Western Kentucky game, we didn't necessarily come to play, but the Old Dominion game, man, was that a game to watch. That was exciting. Battling back, I just love the intensity. The entire final 10 minutes of the game, the intensity just stayed up the entire time. Down 10 with 5 minutes left to play. That's an easy point to start getting a little anxious, start jacking up threes, and then kind of giving up on defense and thinking about the next offensive possession and how are you going to make it back through that 10-point deficit. But on the offensive side of the floor, we stayed strong. Milo Supica was coming out huge with some offensive rebounds, giving us second chance points. And when you do stuff like that, you cut the lead in half without needing extra possessions because you're giving yourself second, third chances to get buckets. And so we cut that 10-point lead in half in like a minute and a half. Had 3 minutes left with down 4 points and kind of went back and forth there, came really close to closing out, just a bucket down, and then back up to 6, and then back down to a bucket. And I was just really happy to see the team fight that way. I was also really happy to see our three-point shooting continue to be pretty solid there, especially down the stretch. And I know it's a loss on the record, and some people aren't going to be happy with that, but I think you got to keep it in perspective too, and just remember, like you just mentioned a second ago, 2 seasons ago we had 7 wins. Last season we had 8 wins. You got to go several seasons back before you get to an even mediocre season for us. So you got to start somewhere, and this is a really great starting point in my mind.
Yeah, and I know you accused me of this last time we had a discussion of seeing the glass half empty because you immediately went to the most recent game, which was a loss. But I understand since you haven't been to a game in a while, I guess. So let's talk about the winning streak, the 4-game Minor Obsession bump before we get into the 2-game losing streak. Yeah, they played pretty hard against Old Dominion, and they also lost to Western Kentucky before that. Shout out to the Hilltopper Hooligans podcast. We'll give them some love on here for giving us some love on Twitter. But we don't really want to talk about that Western Kentucky game. Kind of lost that pretty handedly. But how about the 3-game homestand to continue a home record of 8-1? 8-1 at home is pretty fantastic. Another game coming up at home, or 2 games actually, this Thursday and Saturday, Florida Atlantic and FIU. So be out for those 2 games, see if we can continue that home play. But to start the new year, 3 games at home to start the conference play. Won all 3 of them. Against some pretty good teams, Old Dominion, Middle Tennessee, UAB. UAB for sure, we were not supposed to win that game, and we dominated it pretty handily. I believe we were like 10-point underdogs for that game. Jameer Young looking fantastic. Just got named Conference USA Freshman of the Week yet again. I think that's 4th time. So, I mean, the team's looking great. We don't expect them to play as well on the road based on their road record of 2-6, but they came out swinging at Marshall. Again, not favored. I was actually in Vegas and had a chance to look at that line and see how unfavored we were, and we dominated them too. The score is not indicative of the game. 77-75. They made a three-pointer at the end. We kind of struggled with our free throws the last minute or two and let Marshall kind of make it look closer than it was, but we really dominated that game, and we're up by 10 or more at multiple points. So it looked really good there. Western Kentucky was a blimp, and as you were saying, Old Dominion looked bad, but really fought our heart out, came back in the game, and just lost some tight ones there at the end. But we beat Old Dominion at home. We battled close with them away. I mean, overall, the season's looking really good. Still 4-2 in conference. Still, near the top of the chart and looking positive for bonus play, especially if we can continue to defend home court these next two games. Go up to 12-7 and 6-2 in the conference. So, again, come out to Halton Arena, 7 o'clock game on Thursday against Florida Atlantic, and then Saturday, 4 o'clock game at FIU. I know some people have not enjoyed the Conference USA kind of scheduling like that. I kind of do. I know if it's a home game on a Saturday or Thursday, I know exactly what time it is and where I need to be. So, helpful for me, and you get the whole night to yourself. I feel like a 7 o'clock Saturday game is a little tougher, especially, someone like you with the kids and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Also, shout out to the alumni game. That was really cool. Good to see some of our alumni out there. Saw DeJuan Harris, player from our area, looking fast as ever, by the way. Just want to give him a shout out. His team lost, but his team also had an older crew, I would say.
So, with where we're at, we just opened up conference play. I mean, we're 6 games into conference play now, and I guess kind of a third through the way there if you really want to get down to it. How you feeling? So right now, North Texas sits atop the conference 6-1, Western Kentucky's 5-1, and then you got 4 teams right there with us: La Tech, FIU, FAU. Both those are the 2 teams we're playing this week, and us sitting at 4-2. How you feeling about that? Being in the top quarter or top 4 teams for the bonus play setup here in a few weeks.
Well, the word I would use to describe it is, or I guess 2 words, not surprised. If you've been listening to the podcast, I've been high on Charlotte basketball very early after that Georgia exhibition game. I know everyone thought I was crazy, but I think more and more people were starting to drink the Kool-Aid and see, oh man, these sophomores really came back strong. Oh man, Jordan Shepard's really a gem. Wow, Young as a freshman, unbelievable. That dude's a star in the making. I cannot wait to see him as a junior and a senior. And then Edwards and Bamba, the graduate transfers, really making a huge difference for the team. It's a night and day, and I know they always talk about it, having a full 13 guys to practice with and all that, another year with people in Coach Sanchez's system. And as we heard from Coach last week, he doesn't think about wins and losses. He thinks about them growing as men and learning to play basketball the proper way, the fundamentals, and you just see that on the court every time. So I feel really good, but to your point, FAU, FIU, and Louisiana Tech are kind of in that second tier with us, and those are our next 3 games. We've got FAU and FIU at home, and then we got Louisiana Tech on the road. So I think if we can get through those 3 games, 2-1.
Yep, 2-1. That's what I was going to say.
I think 2-1's a reasonable. Whether we split at home and we win the one on the road, or we continue to dominate at home, I think 2-1 is a positive outcome. I think 3-0, I'm licking my chops and I'm feeling really good because we lost to Western Kentucky, but we also we went to Western Kentucky. Let's see if that changes if they come to Halton Arena. And yeah, the only thing that would make me upset is 0-3. I think 1-2, you could still be hopeful. But if we go 0-3 these next 3 games, then I'll start. I'll still be driving the bandwagon. Don't get me wrong, but I'll be nervous for sure, and I think less people will be with me at that point.
Yeah, I mean, As far as the people go, I've seen a mix. I think if you monitor social media or listen to some groups and other people talk at games and things like that, people are really, Johnny come lately, what have you done for me recently type mentality. And I mean, that's not unusual in the sports world. Lots of sports fans for every team only think about what's right in front of them, what happened this game. They aren't necessarily looking at the entire picture regularly, which is why you've got fun, upbeat podcasts to listen to that you can make fun of for how bandwagon we are on these things. But I mean, in my mind, there's no way, even at this point, even if you lose out, there's no way you call this season a failure. The growth that we've seen, the close games, almost all of our losses have been single-digit points, chances to win at the end, and you can gripe about, hey, we should have been fouling, or hey, if we didn't have these couple turnovers, we might have pulled out that game. And you know what? I agree. I think that's a true statement. I think the ODU game that we just got done losing had a few mistakes in there that could have left us out on top. 100% agree with you. But at the same time, if I'm thinking about the basketball product I get to watch now, night and day, so much more enjoyable. And God, is it nice to be in a position to say, oh, if we would have just not made these 3 mistakes or, made a few more free throws, we would have won that game. Because 2 years ago, we had zero chance of that. Like, we were lucky to come out of a game saying, hey, we won that game, let alone, hey, if we had just hit a couple opportunities, then, I mean, Mark Price almost got ejected at Davidson. We did so poorly. He had to walk out onto the floor mid-play to yell at the refs. That's kind of the state we were in just 2 seasons ago. And now you've got us talking about, hey, could we be in that top tier? Is it real? And, I mean, I'll give you credit. You definitely are. You were more on the bandwagon. The one tweet you chose to send in the last 6 months was the national championship trophy and saying, is this our year? I think that might be a little bit cart before the horse, but, weeks before the season, I think we were both in line on setting the win total at 15, and that looks pretty well on track right now, and that's a huge success in my mind.
100%. And I think the other big take that we both had was we were going to make the Conference USA tournament this year and not be one of the 2 teams out of
that looks really well in hand right now. We've got Middle Tennessee at 0 wins, Rice and Southern Miss at 1 win. I think we can stay ahead of them and make it at least the last seed in the tournament there at this point.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. I still think 18 wins is more of the spot, maybe even higher. And I'm still.
I would adjust our lineup for sure. I think I
don't need to adjust it though. I think
now.
I said 18 or more when we were saying over under.
No,
15.
we agreed 15 before the season started. I mean, you might have changed.
You could go back to the videotape. You said the line was 15, 100%, and you said, "Yeah, we're gonna get 15 or 16." I feel good about that, and I was like, "I think we're getting 18 or more," and I'm still on that, baby. I'm still sipping the Kool-Aid. And, even more now, again, after talking to Coach, I'm all in, pun intended, on this team. I really feel good about it. And I think, worst case scenario, we've got an NIT in the future.
Yeah, what do you have to go back to? Like 2014 before you get to like a
good season? We had that
2013 to 2014, we had 17 wins.
We had that one good season, which we didn't make the tournament or anything, with Major. But honestly, when I really think back to like a good basketball season, I think like Lutz's last year was probably our last like solid year where we had a really good year and kind of fell apart at the end. Had the A10 tournament, I think we were the 5th seed.
Don't remind me of that one, please.
And we lost the home game that would have sent us to Atlantic City for the tournament when we already prematurely went to Atlantic City. And that was the one where I think he had 6 guys on the court and we got a technical foul.
We often ask our guests, best point as a Niner, best moment as a Niner, what is it? I think for me, if you were to ever ask lowest point as a Niner, that was it. Being in Atlantic City, ready to see our team in action at whatever that place is called. It's not Assembly Hall, but something like that. And then checking the ticker, because I don't even think we had a video feed for it at that point, and seeing that we lost at home to St. Bonaventure to not even make it to the A10 tournament.
Was it St. Bonnie? I thought it was UMass.
I thought it was St. Bonaventure. I remember the Brown and just being super mad about it.
Yeah.
But 2012 under Majors, the one you're talking about, 2012-2013, that was 21-win season with the loss to Providence in the NIT tournament.
Yeah, that was the one I think we beat Michigan that I still see on the highlight reel on the screen during 49er games.
And then 2009, 2010 is the one you were thinking of for the
that
UMass.
was a good year, and the year
we lost
before
to
that,
UMass.
or 2 years before that, was the Lee-Meyer Goldwire year where we lost to Nebraska in the NIT. That was the year we beat Steph Curry and we beat Clemson, who was ranked at the time. So it's been a decade. That's why I didn't put them on my top 10 or my top 5 decade moments.
Well, and I think if you just sat through that history report we just did for the past 12 years and how miserable it's been, then you hopefully take a lot more pride in what we're seeing right now and maybe judge a little softer with any negative comments you have about this team. Because, man, again, is it nice to have a team that you have small gripes about that could be corrected along the way. We're not far from competing in this conference. I mean, we are competing now, but we're not far from owning this conference if we stay on this trajectory and can keep Sanchez around and have him continue to build the system and get the pieces in place that he wants to make this a complete team.
For sure. So let's pivot over from men's basketball to women's basketball. Unfortunately, unlike Coach Sanchez, Coach Consuega did not get the minor obsession bump from our interview. They did win that game the day we interviewed, and then they won the next game. But since then, they've gone 1-3.
1-3, yep.
And they are 2-5, or 2-3. Apologize. In conference right now, 11-5 overall. So still a pretty good year. Started off very strong, starting to cool down a little bit. Lost a recent game at home against Western Kentucky, and now has some road games coming up as well. Another nice thing, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, but just pointing it out, another nice thing about conference play is you know exactly where and when the women are playing based on the men and vice versa, because they play the same teams and they just flip the location. So
yeah,
the women
that part might be the nice thing, but the not nice thing is they're literally always playing at the exact same time for conference play.
Not on Saturdays. On during the week, yes, it's 7:00, but on Saturdays,
a lot of the Saturdays they are, or they're overlapping.
The last couple ones I saw were at 2:00, and then
Well, I mean, they're finishing when the 4:00 tips.
Yeah, but it's close. Like, it's enough. It's actually cool. You get to the arena a little early, and you can watch it on your phone, or they haven't streamed it for me yet.
But anyways.
But yeah, I guess I could see the problem with that. I like it just because I can keep up pretty easily. And yeah, so they're doing their thing. Hopefully, we'll get going. They're still doing well at home. 5-2 at home. Only lost one home game Saturday against Western Kentucky since the minor obsession bump. If you really want to look at the minor obsession bump, they are 2-0 or 2-1 at home. So we're trying our best here. And it looks like we have an additional game in the future thanks to your Twitter game where we're going to see Kara versus Sierra. And we still need to work with them on how we're going to broadcast that, because I think that seems like a live stream opportunity for Twitter that the people want to see.
Yeah, I definitely think they should. I would love to see it. I mean, the poll said people think Kara's still got game, and I mean, it's tough to knock the career she had. But she's a little further removed from playing than Sierra is. So I would still really like to see it. If both of you are listening right now, make it happen. Give us a call. We'll come film it, or we'll set up headsets along the sideline and just commentate it over the loudspeakers while the two of you ball out. I would love to do that and maybe live stream it out to the world while it's going on. But back to your analysis for a minute on the quote unquote minor obsession bump. Little harsh judgment there from that, because honestly, I feel for the women's team right now. That was a tough way to close out the year. You've got Davidson on the road. You got a little break with Maryland Eastern Shore at home. But then you've got a tough road schedule. They didn't have their first home game until January 16th. That's a really tough way to start the year and tough way to start Conference USA play. 3 road games in a row against tough opponents. And then now turning around, which obviously with how spread out our conference is, you got to travel eventually, but now turning around, having to go down to Florida, come back home for a week, then back down to over to Texas. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but right now they're currently middle of the pack for conference standings, so not in a terrible spot. The women are going to be doing the bonus play setup, I believe, so we'll see how that shakes out too. Kind of excited to see how the rest of the conference play goes on the women's side of things, because like you said, they started off really hot, like unbelievably hot. How hot they started the season, and now mid-season slump a little bit, but still plenty of time to turn things around. And again, only a couple games out of first place, so a couple wins here and there, and you start closing that gap and look like you're back on top of the world like we were to start the season.
For sure. And looking forward to making it to that tournament. And again, I am really bullish on both basketball teams. I think the women are going to make the NCAA tournament as well.
That's
I'm calling it all, man. Calling it all. They made the WNIT last year. I think that's a lock either way. But you gotta be aggressive about these. And I don't know, man. I just feel good about what's happening in the Charlotte basketball fruit punch or whatever. And I know our conference isn't great, and I know that it's probably like a 1, maybe 2 bid league, but I think we're going to get the bid for both of them because we're going to win the conference tournament. I don't care where we finish. I think they're both going to win the tournament. I think it's going to be that kind of year.
That was going to be my question for you is, you heard Coach talk about it when we interviewed her a couple weeks ago, how difficult it is to get into the NCAA tournament these days for women's basketball. So, I mean, you have to win the tournament to have a chance there. So I'm glad you think that that's what it is. I still think we have plenty of ability. We've got a really strong team who's proven capable of winning, had a good season last year that they've built upon, ran into a tough UAB team in the tournament, if I remember correctly. But so far took them down already this season, and I don't think UAB is quite the stout force that they were last year. So I feel good. I like your analysis. I'm crossing my fingers for that too. I'm not going to say you're wrong about either of those picks. I think the men can hang with any team with the defense they play, and I think conversely the women can hang with any team with the type of offense that they have there, and their inside presence helps out on both sides of the court.
Yeah, and I know kind of a crazy prediction. I would say guaranteed lock. My stone cold lock of the year is both the men's and women's team will win at least one game in conference play. Neither one will be one and done.
In conference play? You mean the conference tournament?
Conference tournament, I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So both are going to win a conference tournament game.
Yes.
That's pretty
lock.
huge. So that would mean, because we definitely didn't make it the year before either, right? So it's probably been 3 years since the men have been in the conference tournament, and then they go to one win. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm still hopeful for the big thing, and I'm still calling it. So if it happens, I'm, Nostradamus. But
what if it doesn't happen, though? Are you as wrong as you are Nostradamus, or is this just a free bet where you have 1,000 to 0 odds or something?
I don't know. I mean, I think as long as they both win a game, I still feel like I'm Nostradamus. If they go beyond that, I'm just incredible.
All right.
But them both winning a game, lock. Calling it. I mean,
Okay.
I'm all in on it. You can hold me to the fire on that. Yeah.
I'm going to.
So, moral of the story is women's basketball going through a little bit of a rough patch, but still reasonable, still 11-5, still got a lot more home games and more conference play to come. Expect them to turn it on. And we expect to have Sierra versus Kara part 1 on the internet at some point. I'm thinking the rules are half court to 21, 2s and 1s. I think that's kind of the
make it take it.
Make it take it, yeah.
Ooh, that's tough.
Nah, you're right. No, make it take it. We'll give givesies.
All right, so basketball firing on all cylinders, middle of the season. Now we're to the point in the year. I mean, it's January, but spring sports are starting. We don't have a ton to dive into for you today because a lot of them don't start for several more weeks. But in the future, we'll have golf, we'll have track and field, who is working right now, but they're early on in their indoor season. Baseball, softball, that good stuff. But today, to close us out, just a little info for you as men's and women's tennis start off their spring season. The men started out strong, got a W over Presbyterian, and then have a loss over the 16th ranked South Carolina Gamecocks and a loss against Boston College. But the Boston College game or match, pretty close. They lost 3-4. So Kyle Bailey starting out his first season as men's tennis coach for Charlotte 49ers. We'll have to have him on the podcast sometime and let you all hear about his background and where he came from. But coming up, we've got several home matches. January 25th, we have 2, actually, South Carolina State and North Carolina A&T. And then January 30th, we've got Wichita State. All of those are at Lifetime Fitness, the Onyx Premier Club. I guess indoor facility while it's still a little colder out. Lifetime Fitness, really nice place, and also not too far from my house, so I might be able to make it over to see a couple of those as the men get into full mid-season mode and get towards, heading into mid-non-conference play and then getting into conference play later on in the year. But excited to really see what Kyle Bailey does. We had Jeremy Feldman leave, and now Kyle Bailey's in his first season where you've got to be able to pick up the players that you already have, try and fill any gaps that you can in the short time of recruiting you have. And so this year's going to be an interesting year where we'll see what he's got together. But we did have a great doubles duo from last season, and we'll see if they can keep up in their ITA rankings this year.
Yeah, and shout out to my new favorite tennis player. He was more in like the 6th position or the 3rd position last year in doubles. Now it looks like he's playing kind of first. Henry Lieberman, what up? Love this kid. It's tough for me to say that because obviously Anthony Davison was my favorite men's tennis player of all time, and shout out to Jesse Hutchinson who played left bench and one of my favorites too, the fake MVP. But Henry Lieberman, what's up? Sophomore, he's the future, and I'm pumped about that. I wish they had jerseys for tennis so I could purchase one.
So now I get to hear you say Joe Lieberman's your uncle, Nancy Lieberman's your aunt, and now Henry Lieberman's what? Your brother, your nephew? What is he?
I'm not that old for him to be my nephew.
What are you talking about? He's got to be at least 12 years younger than you.
I guess. I'm just going to call him my cousin. That seems good. Probably better to replace my cousin anyway. Shout out, Matt.
Shouting out lots of people today. I love it. But yeah. I'm really excited that I get to hear that there's a Lieberman on the men's tennis team for the next, 4 years while you live it up and talk about how great Liebermans are along the way.
Hey, there's not really that many of us, especially in the athletic department. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Don't be jealous because you had Cam Newton on the Panthers for a while. So
still do, technically.
It looks like he's getting traded. But anyway, this isn't a Panther podcast. This is a 49er podcast.
So moving on to the women's tennis, speaking of Anthony Davison, they are now kicking off the season 2, just finished up 2 matches here, went undefeated against Queens. Let's just say, what up, Queens? Welcome to the big leagues. Sorry you came against the big dogs, the real university in the Charlotte region, and lost handedly, and then went against number 8 in the country, NC State, and lost 0-7 as well. So starting off the season 1-1. They've got a couple matches coming up. Presbyterian on January 24th at home, and South Carolina State on January 24th at home, and then they travel over to Clemson. So excited to see what they do. Obviously, Anthony had a really great year last year, and we saw some really good positive momentum on a first-year head coach. And I think that this year we've seen some really good recruits come in for him. I'm excited to see what they can do and really get into hopefully seeing both men's and women's tennis make a climb up the hill back to conference championships like they were not that far ago.
For sure. This seems like a good year for it. And then, of course, baseball's coming up. They have the banquet on the 25th, so this Friday, where Coach Ely will be speaking. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, you should definitely try to make your way out for that. And one other thing I wanted to point out, Benny LeMay winning the Shrine Bowl MVP, 80 yards, 2 TDs. Good stuff there. I know, Cameron Clark and Alex Highsmith are locks to get drafted. Benny LeMay, I think he's going to get drafted too, but running backs are a little bit tougher. I think that this is a good omen to him hopefully making a team based on that performance in a big national spot. So good for him, and looking forward to the draft and talking a little bit about that and maybe getting some of those guys on here afterwards.
Yeah, that was awesome. He had a great day. Highsmith, too, the videos that made it out from practices, man, NFL teams have got to be high on him. The spin moves he was laying down, that man works. Like, his father put in a real good work ethic in him, and he's so humble, too. It's all just, by the grace of God, I'm just working out here, and it's not, there's none of that cockiness you see with really good players a lot of times, and I love that, and I love seeing him just continue to get better and better each time we watch him.
Love it. Love the dad shout out too. You're like BFFs with him after the Bahamas, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we might have become friends.
Making people stars over here.
Yeah. So anyways, that's in a nutshell what we got going on in terms of 49ers sports these days. Again, we've got a bunch of spring sports kicking off in the next few weeks, so look for that stuff coming. But most importantly, basketball's in full season mode, and both are doing pretty solid. So be sure to go out on the home games we mentioned for the men's and women's teams. Get out there, support them. A lot of the games are streamable too. I know we love to watch them. It's a good way to spend your Thursday night or Saturday afternoon. So make sure you're doing that, and feel free to reach out to us on social media or Gmail, minorobsession49@gmail.com. And Scott, anything I missed?
Nope. Kara and Sierra, call us. We're ready to make this happen.
We're ready to live broadcast this one-on-one tournament. Sorry we made it such a thing. I realized that that initially fun question didn't need to turn into such a how do I put it, hard-hitting question, but now we've got to see it through. We stirred and opened a can of worms, and I think the people want to see it happen, right? There were enough responses. I think the people need to know who wins. Kara Consuegra, Sierra Gregory.
Who do you got?
I don't know, man. That's tough.
Look at you. You're just like Joe Buck, fair and unbiased. You gotta call it down the middle. And
look, here's the thing. If Sierra can still shoot the tray ball like she could in college, that's tough to defend. Like, she could, in one-on-one, you check it in, you drain it from the check line, and boom. There's nothing you can do about that. But if she can't, and she tries to take it inside, I think I'm going to take Kara. I think I got to take Coach on this one.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it depends on the game plan. I think the key is, as Coach said, you gotta play half court. She's not gonna play full court. And then is Sierra back in shape, ready to go, or has she not gotten back to that playing area yet where Coach is going to outlast her?
It's a good question.
Well, those questions will hopefully be answered at some time in the near future as we continue to
pull the thread,
advertise. It's going to be awesome, and we're going to be there for it. So with all that said, women's basketball, men's basketball, tennis, keep doing awesome things. We'll be talking about you. Really excited about the season, and come out and support the Niners. With all that, remember to wear green.
And go Niners.